What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another case review. Today we have the Bitfenix Aurora case. It is a nice white sleek design on the outside with tempered glass panels and a glass panel on the back which isn't tempered, so you can't actually see your cables on the inside, and we have to peel this off. I hope you all enjoy the review. The Bitfenix Aurora, a stylish case design with the matte white finish on the outside and the tempered glass panel to view your whole system within the inside. It is a great display case if you want to deck out your system with some custom work inside, maybe even some liquid cooling and so on. Speaking of liquid cooling, has great liquid cooling features, fully supports and promotes liquid cooling within the case. So let's take this front tempered glass panel off and we'll take a look at the inside. So the front panel comes off with 4 thumb screws. It's quite easy, and you just simply lift it off. Now, the good thing about this is when you do take the thumb screws off, it actually sits and is mounted on some small lips here, so the actual window will not fall off. As I said before, the outside of the case is a matte white design, but the inside of the case is matte black, powder coated to be exact. The whole case is made out of steel, apart from the top and the front cover, which are both made out of plastic. Now, the problem with matte white is it does get dirty easily, but hopefully you can just wipe it off and go from there. The black, great feature. I'm all for it, but the white gives the build a nice refreshing look from all other cases out there, with the majority of them being matte black. Inside of the case, we can see it looks like there is a 5¼ inch bay drive, but it is not for bay devices. This is actually for mounting 2 extra hard drives up the top if you wish, and it is all removable by just removing 4 screws. The bottom also has some hard drive mounting bays where you can put 2 more in there, which is also removable with 4 thumb screws. We also have a removable SSD cage if you want to put your SSD at the front. And speaking of SSDs, the case also comes with this little SSD bracket here, which you can attach to the SSD and make it light up. Now, this is fully supported by the Asus Aura software, so the majority of the lighting in this system can be controlled by the Asus Aura software on your computer. The case does not come with a power supply cover, and it also has a grommet which can take the cables out and into the back. Now, you can get more room, of course, by removing this hard drive cage down below, so your cables have more room to route through, and there is a nice size cutout here which your cables can also go through as well. Plenty of grommet holes for cable management, as you can see here, with the 24-pin cable being able to route through here and GPU cables coming down through there, as well as SATA. This does support your standard ATX size motherboards and has a nice decent size cutout here, so when you're accessing through the back, you'll be able to mount your water coolers or different cooling blocks onto your CPU. The power supply does have little raised lips with some rubber feet to prevent any scratches within the case, and it also prevents the power supply from sagging. So it's just another support feature to keep the case intact. There is a hole here which you can use for your I/O cables, so you don't have to have them out and in full view. However, the whole cable is going to be out in full view anyway because there is no power supply cover, but I do plan on making a power supply cover for this build. The case does come with 1 pre-installed fan, so if you are looking to get this case, you will have to buy extra fans with it, or of course you can just use your fans out of your old case if you have one. This case does support a 280mm radiator on the front. However, to make full use of that 280mm radiator, you will need to remove this hard drive bay cage up the top here. Now, you could get away with a 240mm radiator withoout having to remove this, but you will also have to consider the thickness of the radiator plus the fans on top, with the fans normally being about 25mm in thickness. Now, this could impact on this distance down here before you hit the hard drive cage down the bottom. So just a few things to think about before purchasing this case if you do plan on going the liquid cooling route. Up the top, again, we do have room for mounting a 280mm radiator. Now, the big thing here is you need to remember your motherboard will come up a certain height, so you need to be careful of the thickness again with the radiator and the fans being on it as well. It may clash with the motherboard, so perhaps putting a thinner radiator up the top. Now, with that being said, this does come with a reservoir and pump mounting bracket, so you can mount your reservoir on the top or on the front if you would like to do that. Now, in a couple of their demo rings, they put the pump up the top. I'm not a big fan of keeping the pump up the top. I like gravity to feed the pump liquid so it never runs dry. So personally, I'd try and put the pump as low as possible, which might mean mounting the reservoir on the front panel with the pump joint underneath and putting the radiator up the top. Another option that I was thinking is removing this hard drive cage, making my power supply cover come out and then down here, still leaving plenty of room to have a radiator at the front and up the top, and I'll have to drill a couple of holes here to actually mount the reservoir and the pump. The case does come with removable dust filters, one on the front and also one down below where the power supply will sit. So it's going to keep your system free from dust. Now, the unfortunate thing is the top does not have any filters. But again, like I've said with most of my case reviews, the manufacturers are expecting you to be exhausting air up and out of the case in that position, which is fair enough to say because heat does rise. The case does feel very sturdy even with the glass panels removed, and I've just noticed that with the glass panel removed they've included a foam tape around the outside of the case just to prevent that glass from scratching any of the case and prevent the glass from being scratched from the case. So it's got a nice soft surface for it to lean on when it's screwed in place. As I said before, the back panel is also made from glass, but it is more of a black finish instead of a tinted finish, so you won't be able to see the cables on the inside. So let's undo this and we'll check out the back compartment. Looking at the back compartment, the first thing I noticed was the cables for the I/O panel up the top for your power and reset. They're all routing up, and I tried to take the panel off, but they're actually attached to the plastic panel itself. So this might be an issue with accessing the inside. You will have to unscrew the actual I/O panel to take this piece right off. At the back we are greeted with two more SSD mounts, so plenty of room for SSDs, one in the front and two in the back. As I said before, this is the hole I was talking about you can utilize for all of your cables coming from the power supply if you wish to remove the hard drive cage. Now, if I was to put a power supply shroud in, I do not have any access to the power supply from this side. So one thing you need to keep in mind is get all of your cables done first and then put the power supply in, because you will not be able to touch under there once it is in. That's of course if you do use a power supply shroud. The back of the case is pretty simple. We have mounting holes for some cable ties for cable management, a nice big window as I said before, and we have this little lighting control panel which is screwed in here, simply removed with two screws if you wish to. Again, we do have the foam tape around the outside, obviously to prevent any scratching, and from the motherboard tray to the actual outside of the case, this lip here, we have about 2 centimeters to play with for cable management. Not as much as some of the other cases that I have seen out there, but should still be enough to fit all your cables in, especially with this bottom section if you did add a power supply cover. But for those who do not want to add a power supply cover, then you're going to have to try and manage your cables efficiently at the back here. The front of the case is a nice clean design. It doesn't have those sharp edges, so it's got a nice gradual curve to it. I really like that. It makes it look sleek and creates that modern design to the front of the case and the case overall. We are greeted with the Bitfenix logo on the front, which I'm glad is in black because the overall theme for this case is a black and white design anyway. The top of the case does have a lighting, power reset, 2 USB 3 audio jacks and 2 USB 2 ports. Now, if you were planning to put a nice beefy CPU cooler on this, you have a max clearance of 160 millimeters. So it's got quite a bit of room to play with there. Just double check with the manufacturers just to see what the clearance is of the cooler. Our max graphics card length is 400 millimeters, so plenty of room. There is no card out there that is 400 millimeters in length. The only thing you'll need to think of is if you put a really thick radiator with fans on that, that'll bring it out, but there's no way you're going to be interfering with any graphics cards anyway. Our max power supply length is 220 millimeters, which will bring the cables up and through here. Of course, you have more room if you do remove this hard drive cage, but then again, power supplies on the market are generally not that large anyway. The depth of the case is 520 millimeters, the height is 490 millimeters, and the width of the case is 215 millimeters. The bottom of the case does have some rubber feet to stop it slipping out of place. However, there is not a lot of distance from the case itself and the actual ground, so you're going to be battling with issues. If you want to place your power supply down, please do not put the case on carpet because there is not a lot of room and it will choke the power supply. So your best bet is, if you do have carpet and you need to put this computer on the ground, perhaps placing a piece of wood or something underneath for it to sit on, or a bit of cardboard, just something to get it up and off of that carpet. So overall, I'm really happy with this design. I'm glad that they've thought about liquid cooling, as obviously I do love liquid cooling. I will be doing a full build in this case, so let me know down below what theme you'd like to see in here. What color theme? I was actually thinking of a white and red theme, but you guys let me know because I'd be very interested to see what your guys' thoughts are. I'm also very happy with the white finish on the outside. I know I did say that it can get dirty easy, and it can, but it's something different that I have not worked on before, so I'd like to give it a go and see what I can do with this case. The case feels very sturdy, and I really do like the finished design of the tempered glass, which gives it a nice clean aesthetic, and it's really perfect for show builds because it's such a big window which covers this whole area and you can show off those components inside. I do like how all of the LED lighting is controlled by the Asus Aura software, and that LED controller will really come in handy when doing my lighting. So this mid-tower case, I have found it going for as low as 109 Australian dollars. I've also found a couple of $129, but $109 from Australia. That is Australian dollars. You can also buy this in a black version, which I've also found. So really depending on your personal preference with this case. Let me know what you guys think of this case, guys. Remember to leave a like and subscribe. Check out more of our videos on the channel. We've got lots of custom PCs, lots of reviews and tutorials, and we'll see you guys in the next video.